Thank you for joining our white towel panel videos. Look at these lovely posters. You can get them at our website. You can get them at the Canucks team store. They will be having autograph sessions, part of the 50th anniversary celebrations. Guys, I wanted to talk to you about that. Obviously, the latest inductee into the Ring of Honor, Alex Burrows. I saw someone make a comment that I think really nailed it, and that was, if you're not a Canucks fan, you will never understand what Alex Burrows was. And it's so true, Ed. You covered him for many years.
There is I think a real lack of appreciation. You can go to the ECHL website and it lists all the graduates they've had, and there's guys who played like 5 games, 10 games. Alex Burrows stands out. He is clearly the best skill player. There's been tough guys, there's been goalies who've come out of that league, but I don't think there's ever been a guy who established himself at the peak of his career as a 30 goal scorer. And you look at that 4-year run, I think it goes from 2010 to 2012, where he's playing with the Sedins, and he's 30 goals a game, first line left winger. In the conversation, I don't want to get clouded here by history, but a really good defensive player on top of everything, an offensive driver, everything you'd want in a player, like a first-round draft pick, probably a top 10 pick. And here he was, this guy that they just took a flyer on, who just willed himself to be an elite NHL player.
There were 2 things that stood out to me in the last couple of days looking through it. First of all, was reading Jason Botchford's great story about Burrows when he retired a year and a half ago, and pointing out exactly that in that 4-year stretch he was with the Sedins, he was 6th in the league in even strength goals, 2 behind Ilya Kovalchuk. Like, the guy could score. He was such an important influence. And on that defensive note, was if you look at that game 7 against the Blackhawks, he's not with the Sedins. He's with Kessler. He's with Raymond. That's a two-way, essentially shut-down line, and he could put him anywhere in the lineup. He proved to be a guy that was a sort of a Mr. Fix-It for that lineup, more than we ever realized. And he still picked up goals. He's picked up big goals even when he wasn't playing with the Sedins.
Overall, I know that we've got a whole season of this left to come. You know, we've talked about these posters. Right now we just have, sort of the current stars and the guys from the 70s. The 80s series starts soon. And we're going through these moments, the top moments from Canucks season. How do you rate this? I think it's been a lot of fun reading some of the old stories, revisiting some of the old ghosts. But what's your thoughts on sort of the anniversary of this franchise? Yes, they don't have a cup, and yes, we can kind of laugh at some of the old times, but there's still a lot of rich content in there.
Well, it's richness. It's the richness of the stories, the richness of the characters. They always haven't had the on-ice success, obviously, but when you look at the characters who've run through this organization, and I think those kind of, peaks and valleys, I think that also adds to the overall narrative, because just when you think they're close, they kind of, snatch it away from them, and then when you think they're going to be terrible, they get a spike, or they improve, or they become an elite team, and it never lasts long, but it just kind of encourages everybody. But again, like, we went to that alumni lunch last Friday, and I was looking around there, and I'm just looking at the characters. Yeah. And I go, are you kidding me? Whether it was, the broadcasters, Jim Robson and Tom Lyshide, there's Stan Smeal over there, and there's Harold Snepps over there. There's Tiger Williams holding court. There's, there's Ron DeLone, there's Brian Burke. It really is amazing. And I think we're starting to get at those stories. Yeah. And I love this retrospective stuff, because I've got a bit of experience with it. And when the statute of limitations runs out and people start feeling a little freer about telling those stories, that's when the real magic happens. And I think we're seeing that with this series.
Yeah. I'm hearing from people about how excited they are just to get the sort of how the V happened, or like the Ron Settlebauer story, or the story where we looked at Wayne Mackey. That story had such a good response coming forward. I mean, it was fun. I'm going to do the 89 Canucks Flames series, which was obviously such a close, incredible upset, and talking to the likes of Tony Tanti and Garth Butcher about stuff like that.
And these aren't huge hockey stories, obviously. They never result in this now, but there are stories. They're this community stories, this franchise's stories, and they really should be shared.
It's something Ed said really hit home with me just now, and it's when you talk about peaks and valleys and how they get close and it gets yanked away. If you look at the 3 Stanley Cup appearances, that was not a plateau for them to build on. All 3 times they pretty much collapsed right after them. Yeah. You look at the mid-'80s, you look at the late 90s, and you look at the last 4 years. Yeah. Like, when they got to that peak, it just seemed to collapse the franchise.
Yeah. Well, the '82 one's a little different, right?
Well, no,
that one
they
came
were
out of the blue,
absolutely.
but '94, they were a really
Yeah,
good
but
team.
those
for 3
85,
years.
86 teams are like
Yeah,
NHL historically.
No,
bad.
I understand that. And the 2011 team, they were building to that moment, and then something happened. Obviously, that Game 7 ripped the guts out, or something out of that team.
Yeah.
But that's part of it. But again, when you talk about like the stories and what makes them so compelling and so attractive, and I think you go back over literature, that's those sort of those failed moments, those brave attempts, all those things. That's what makes for great drama and great storytelling.
And the interesting thing on those notes in those valleys is how the teams got rebuilt. And you think about the emergence of Pat Quinn and what he meant after the team was on the verge of moving almost in the mid 80s. You think about essentially the work that Brian Burke does in the wake of that in the late 90s, building that West Coast Express team, the team, the 2011 team, which Gillis was involved with, and then obviously bottoming out from that, and the team that we're kind of seeing now. I mean, is that the next wave? It's kind of an interesting thing to look at that in perspective.
Yeah, great stuff, guys, and that will continue through the year. We will start our 80s series writing about those top moments in December here, and then obviously we get into the 90s in January, the aughts, I think we call them, in February, and we'll finish obviously with the current decade. For anyone who's making fun of my shirt, I'd just like to point out Mr. Millennial here has tiny avocados on his shirt. All right, so thanks for watching, everyone. We'll be back next week.